Hi, thanks for joining me for another prayerful pause. This is a few minutes that we set aside in our day to focus on something greater than ourselves. If you're a regular watcher of this series, then you know that yesterday I spoke about the difference between personality and soul. And today I want us just to spend a few minutes thinking about how do we create a space for the nurturing of our soul. Let's face it, the whole world is a place for nurturing our sense of self, and personality is part of that. But I'm talking about nurturing the soul. Another one of my readings that I do regularly comes from the Center for Action and Contemplation, and it's usually prepared by Richard Rohr. Yesterday's was no exception, and he wrote about community. Community is an interesting thing. Excuse me, I happen to agree with him that small communities are sort of built into us, that we as human beings tend to gravitate to and to form small communities, whether they're families or our community at work or our neighborhoods, or maybe even some of us work with larger communities that we intentionally draw together. That is the whole basis for South Church's Acts of Faith model of ministry, and you can learn more about that if you go to our website, which is on the end cap of this video. But as Richard Rohr wrote the following yesterday, which would have been May 4th. Oh, today's May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo Day. Anyway, he wrote this yesterday. Who would have thought that creating physical distance from others would be an authentic way to care for our neighbors, especially the most vulnerable? Then he goes on to talk about how we have created community, and the prayerful pause certainly is one of those communities that we create, as well as all of the Zoom gatherings that South Church does during the week. If you're interested in joining us for any of those, we'd love to welcome you. Just let me know and I'll send you the invitation. Anyway, he says that over the years he's met many people who live in monasteries, I had to laugh at this, but who don't have actual capacity for community life, even though they're living in community. And at the same time, he knows a lot of religious sisters who live alone in apartments, but are totally community-oriented, bound up and interconnected with the lives of many people. I have to say, I know many of them too. The secret to community, he writes, lies in the way we let other people get through to us, and the way we move out of ourselves. This is, of course, the mystery of spirituality, of vulnerability, and powerlessness. When a person on a serious inner journey to their own vulnerability is also in immediate contact with the vulnerable of the world, then some form of community will almost always result. So I'm thinking, well, what do we do then to create the space for our soul to develop, for that relationship that we have with God, that innate connection that we have with a deity? How do we bring that about, especially during this COVID sequester time? Much of what people are focusing on today is the development of that inner core, the interior spirituality. But I suggest that it's not enough. I agree with Richard Rohr. It's not enough to stop there. We have to find ways to be connected outside of ourselves. And it is in creating that space, and it may just be a 5-minute space or 10-minute space, like the prayerful pause, or it might be a space where you purposely get outside of your house to go for a walk, but that you are intentional in your creation of a boundaried space, whatever size that space is. It is the intent and the action, the process of doing it, that creates a space for us, and that's where our soul can start to take root and really be nurtured. It might be in writing, it might be in music, you performing music or writing music. It might be in art, it might be in sewing masks, it might be in some other creative form, it might be in reading. Perhaps it's doing spiritual reading every day. Maybe it is walking or being out in nature, depending on where you're located and how safe that is to keep social distance. Whatever it is, it's the intentionality of the process of creating space that is dedicated to being outside ourselves. It is a paradox. We're creating the space inside ourselves so that we can be outside ourselves, if that makes any sense. And in so doing, by creating that intentional space, that's the first thing we do to nurture our soul. We create a space where it's safe for the soul to be vulnerable and to be present. And that's your challenge for today. What I want you to do today is to figure out a way that you can sustain. This is not a one-shot deal. And so don't start with, I'm going to spend an hour in meditation. No. Work on something about 5 or 10 minutes long. And if it grows longer because you're having a great time, so be it. How wonderful is that? But you're going to figure out some way to carve out, and one of my sister nun friends used to say that, carving out time for God. That's what you're doing. I want you to carve out some time today that you can sustain, and you might find 2 or 3 days down the road that this wasn't the right carve out. You need to carve out something else. It's constantly evolving as we grow and change. But I want you to start by carving out something intentional that will be a space where you can just be yourself and be vulnerable and eventually share that with others. But that's going to come incrementally. We'll get into that another time. Okay? I hope this makes sense. It's sort of foundational work for us to begin to build community by creating a safe space for our soul every day. Okay, that's it for now. I'm Deb Swift. I'm the pastor of South Presbyterian Church in Rochester, New York. Thank you. Thank you for carving out some space to join me today for our prayerful pause with the pastor. If you'd like to learn more about South Church, as I said, you can visit the website, which is on the end slide of this video, or you can find more of these prayerful pauses and worship services and other meditations and so forth on our YouTube channel, South Church Rochester. No Presbyterian in that because nobody can spell it. So it's just South Church Rochester on YouTube. All right, we'll see you next time. Be safe. Keep the faith. All right, and just have a great day. Bye for now.